Two different heartbeats pulsed against me, and their shadows spiraled into one consuming shape. I realized I hadn't known what surrender truly meant until now. It was, to me, a dream come alive, but I never knew it would be this brutal and dark. I shouldn't have done, but it's too late. My name is Evelyn. I'm 29, a medical doctor from Phoenix. My life has always been about control. Deadlines, campaigns, my own ambition. But privately, I carried a deep emptiness. I grew up with a single mother who always told me to rely only on myself. I took that lesson too seriously. My relationships were always with men who saw me as another project, rushing in, rushing out, never pausing long enough to truly see me. They all wanted the final destination without savoring the road. I was tired of being handled by impatience. If you're afraid to watch where this goes, then maybe you are afraid of the truth about yourself. Do not hide from Evelyn's choice. Like this story and commit to seeing her journey through to the very last word. If you really love your friends, share this so they can feel it too. The frustration brought me to Santa Fe and to this specific lounge, a place known for its quiet, mature clientele. I swirled the dark amber liquid in my glass. I was looking for something or someone who understood that restraint was the truest form of power. That's when they walked in, Elias and Julian. They were in their early 50s, dressed in dark, expensive fabrics that looked effortless. They didn't strut, they simply moved. There was no eagerness in their eyes, no sweeping scan of the crowd. They acted as if the whole room already belonged to them, and they were simply choosing where to stand. My heart jumped, a single sharp beat. Maybe, I thought, the old wish resurfacing. Maybe someone older would know how to slow down. My eyes met Elias's first. He was the more severe of the two, his face etched with sharp intelligence. He didn't look away. His acknowledgement was just the smallest nod, a gesture of quiet authority, not a plea for attention. Julian, warmer, already wore a knowing smile, like he'd been waiting for my gaze to land on them all along. I felt a sudden, unbidden warmth rush to my cheeks. This was different. This wasn't the frantic pursuit I was used to. They crossed the room without haste, claiming the two empty stools on either side of me. I was instantly enclosed, bracketed by their calm, solid presences. "Tell me," he asked, his expression impossible to read, "what's a woman like you doing here alone?" "Maybe I was waiting for you," I said, the truth and the joke inseparable. Julian leaned back a little, observing me. Both of us. I bit my lip, the rising tension making me laugh. "I didn't say that." "But you didn't say no," he returned, flawlessly smooth. My pulse began to beat faster, a rapid, loud drum in my chest. I knew the choice was hanging in the quiet air, suspended by their patience. "Maybe we should leave," Elias finally said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming a deep invitation. My breath paused. "And go where?" I managed to ask. "My place is close," he answered, a statement of fact, not a boast. Julian's hand slid from the bar to mine, a feather-light brush, deliberate and slow. "Closer than you think." The thrill of it sparked sharp and sudden in my chest. A second of hesitation, then I nodded. It wasn't a decision. It was an acceptance. We rose together. Their presence enveloped me, one on each side, a comfortable, inescapable weight as we moved toward the door. The city waited, but my thoughts were already ahead, racing toward the complete, utter commitment I had just agreed to. I stepped out into the night air of Santa Fe, the cool November chill barely registering because of the heat rushing through my veins. My pulse was still racing as Julian held the rear car door for me. Elias slipped into the front passenger seat, turning slightly to watch me. I slid across the soft leather, and Julian settled in right beside me. The car, an anonymous black sedan, was immediately and intensely personal. The city lights of Canyon Road flashed through the windows, brief streaks of neon and shadow, but all I noticed was the absolute proximity. Julian's arm brushed mine as he settled, an action that felt deliberate, not accidental. He didn't pull back. The warmth of his presence filled the small space, a soft, firm pressure against my side with every slight movement of the car. "You're quiet now," Julian murmured, his voice a low, knowing tease. "Maybe I'm just thinking," I said, my voice softer than I intended. "About what?" Elias asked, from the front, turning just enough so his eyes caught mine in the rearview mirror. His gaze was steady, calm, like he was looking into my very thoughts. I offered a faint smile, unable to formulate an answer. My thoughts were too scattered, too fast to capture in words. They were already moving beyond thought. Julian leaned closer, his proximity reducing the air between us to nothing. His hand moved from the seat to my knee. It was a light touch at first, a barely perceptible connection. Then his touch became firmer, his thumb beginning to draw small, slow circles against the smooth fabric of my dress. My breathing ceased. He made no sudden move, applied no pressure. He simply allowed me to feel the steady, hypnotic weight of his touch. He used patience as a weapon, letting my own anticipation do the work. Then the second touch. Elias reached back from the front seat, his fingers brushing lightly against my wrist where it rested on the armrest. His touch was fleeting, almost ethereal, a counterpoint to the solid heat of Julian's hand on my leg. I felt suddenly pulled in two directions, every nerve sparking awake, my body responding instantly to their precise, synchronized attention. "Still thinking?" Julian asked, his mouth so close I could feel the faint warmth of his breath. I managed a soft, breathy laugh, though my chest felt too tight to release the sound. "If I was, I'm not anymore." The driver remained silent, a mere shadow. It felt as if the entire world outside the cab had evaporated, leaving only the three of us in this sealed, moving bubble of escalating tension. Hey family, thank you for still watching this story. It honestly means the world to me. This channel is built on your love and encouragement, and I couldn't have come this far without you. If you'd like to support us in a bigger way, please take a moment to share our stories on your Facebook groups, with your communities, and on WhatsApp with your loved ones. Every share helps us reach new hearts, touch more lives, and grow this amazing family even stronger. You are the reason we keep going, and with your help, we'll go even further. Back to our story. I lost track of the turns, the lights, the passage of time itself. All that existed were their hands, their eyes, and their subtle movements, finding small, inevitable excuses to touch me again and again. Every contact was layered, a soft pressure here, a warm graze there, a pull, a rest. Julian's hand moved higher on my leg, a slow, inch-by-inch ascent. Elias's fingers brushed the sensitive skin on the inside of my elbow. The air inside the car felt charged, the intensity so profound it was almost audible. When the car finally slowed, I blinked in surprise, recognizing the wealthy, quiet neighborhood. We were already at the address. The ride, a blur of pure high-stakes anticipation, had vanished completely. Julian opened the door, his hand resting lightly on the small of my back as I stepped out, guiding me forward. Elias stood on my other side. I was once again perfectly bracketed. The anticipation of the quiet apartment ahead was so thick, it felt like something I could reach out and touch. Their presence on both sides of me as we walked up the pathway was the only anchor I had left. The large door opened into an apartment that was beautifully quiet, the kind of stillness that makes every minor sound feel amplified. Low lights cast a warm bronze glow across expensive leather chairs and polished dark wood. It felt deliberate, completely prepared, as if this space had been waiting for us all along. Elias moved smoothly away to a bar area to pour drinks. Julian stayed by my side, his hand lightly resting just above the small of my back as he helped me out of my coat. His fingers brushed against my shoulder, slow, unhurried, holding the cloth for a moment longer than necessary. My breath caught, held tight in my chest. I realized how close Elias was when he returned, glass in hand, standing right behind me. His presence was a heat at my back, Julian's a solid support at my side. I was sealed in place. "Sit," Elias said softly, gesturing toward a large plush sofa. I lowered myself onto the edge, my hand unsteady as I accepted the glass from him. Julian followed, sitting right beside me, his thigh immediately making contact with mine, a warm, constant signal. Elias moved to the armrest opposite, leaning forward, his eyes fixed on me with calm, deep patience. They didn't rush. They didn't need to. The knowledge of what was coming was the strongest pressure of all. Julian let his hand trail lightly along my arm, his fingertips gliding past my wrist before his palm came to rest against mine. It wasn't a possessive grip, just a profound connection. At the same time, Elias reached forward. His knuckles gently brushed my cheek as he swept a loose strand of hair behind my ear. "You're trembling," he observed, his voice quiet, almost an acknowledgement of a truth he already knew. "Am I?" I asked, my voice barely audible. I felt the powerful truth of it. Their presences, layered and folded around me, were too much to absorb calmly. In that heart-stopping moment, caught perfectly between the promise of a touch from the front and the certainty of control from the side, I finally understood. The real journey hadn't even started. I was completely surrounded. The moment they moved was not a rush, but an enclosure. Elias closed the distance ahead. Julian pressed in at my side. Their shadows and bodies folded around me until I felt sealed inside something I couldn't possibly step out of. My breathing quickened, my skin growing hot. There was no neutral space left. Every inch was claimed by them. A fingertip began to trail along my arm, stroking the inside of my wrist before finally curling into my palm. At the very same moment, Julian's hand on my hip became a firmer anchor, guiding me back, deeper into the soft cushions of the sofa. The double force of the sensation, one ethereal, one substantial, was a jolt through my whole body. I couldn't decide where to focus, whose touch to follow. Their eyes held me in place. Elias leaned so close, I inhaled the warmth of his breath and the subtle spice of his skin. Julian's voice was a low murmur right against my ear. "Still curious?" he confirmed. My lips parted, but no answer came. The only sound was my own breathing, now shallow and uneven. Julian moved first, his fingers brushing my hair back from my face, then trailing down the side of my neck. My pulse jumped harder, a wild thing beneath his touch. Then Elias leaned in further, his thumb sliding under my chin, gently tilting my face until my gaze was trapped in his. I expected his mouth. Instead, his lips brushed the slope of my shoulder, pausing there, tracing higher, an unhurried, intoxicating exploration. At the same time, Julian's hand on my hip became a firmer anchor, guiding me back, deeper into the soft cushions of the sofa. The double force of the sensation, one ethereal, one substantial, was a jolt through my whole body. I couldn't decide where to focus, whose touch to follow. Their eyes held me in place. Elias leaned so close, I inhaled the warmth of his breath and the subtle spice of his skin. Julian's voice was a low murmur right against my ear. "Still curious?" He confirmed. My lips parted, but no answer came. The only sound was my own breathing, now shallow and uneven. Julian moved first, his fingers brushing my hair back from my face, then trailing down the side of my neck. My pulse jumped harder, a wild thing beneath his touch. Then Elias leaned in further, his thumb sliding under my chin, gently tilting my face until my gaze was trapped in his. I expected his mouth. Instead, his lips brushed the slope of my shoulder, pausing there, tracing higher, an unhurried, intoxicating expiration. At the same time, Julian's hand on my hip pressed more firmly at my waist, pulling me an inch closer until I was utterly held between them, an object claimed and perfectly secured. The sofa dipped with their combined weight as they shifted, closing their ranks tighter around me. Elias's knee pressed against mine, a spreading, solid heat up my leg. Elias's knee pressed against mine, a spreading, solid heat up my leg. Julian's fingers threaded gently into my hair, holding my head still, keeping me rooted while his other hand began to roam lower across the curve of my thigh. Every point of contact was no longer separate. They overlapped, layered upon one another until I couldn't tell which touch belonged to which man. They guided me further back, deeper into the cushions, their bodies becoming a bracket around mine. Elias leaned in from behind, his lips grazing the delicate line of my neck, while Julian bent over me, his voice a low, steady command at my ear. "Breathe," he instructed. His tone was not frantic, but absolute. I hadn't even realized I was struggling for air. The soft fabric of my dress shifted under their combined touch. One palm slid up my back, exploring the arch of my spine. The other slipped across my tummy, his fingertips trailing slow, devastating circles that made my entire body tighten and tremble. My head fell back without conscious thought, surrendering completely to the direction they were taking me. I tried for a fading moment to keep track of whose hand was where, whose breath was warming my skin, but it became a blur too quickly. It was a single intense storm of pressure and heat, all happening at once. My senses split, then fused again, leaving me wonderfully, completely helpless against the dual, total attention. The rhythm was slow, patient, but utterly relentless. Every touch was sustained, held just long enough to drive the sensation higher before another, different touch followed and anchored the feeling. A hand gripped, another guided, another stroked, another steadied. My breathing became fast and broken, the sound of it filling the quiet room louder than the distant hum of the city lights outside. "You feel it now, don't you?" Elias said, his voice deep and calm, the voice of a man who knows the answer before he asks. "Yes," I managed, my eyes closing tight, every nerve alive and singing. Their weight pressed from both sides, shifting me, holding me, consuming me. My body moved instinctively, responding to their pressure, pulled into a rhythm that demanded complete obedience. I felt surrounded, utterly claimed, and completely undone. And in that overwhelming blur, in that storm of sensation, the truth of my years-long search became blindingly clear. I had thought I only wanted to know what it was like with one older man, the curiosity of patience, the power of experience. But here, held between both, overwhelmed by the perfect synchronization of every touch, every low sound, every steady word guiding me deeper, I finally understood the heart of my own longing. One was never what I truly wanted. The night swallowed me whole. That was the night I finally learned the ecstatic, profound meaning of giving in completely. It wasn't just about satisfying a passing curiosity. It was about being carried by two men who possessed the experience and the control to take me further than I had ever believed I could go. I was utterly, wonderfully lost in their power. So tell me, if you had found yourself sealed inside that quiet apartment, held between two such profound and commanding presences, would you have found the courage to simply let go? If you felt that truth deep in your gut, and if you believe everyone deserves to feel that rush of being utterly claimed, then you know what you must do. Share this story with the one person you trust the most. Don't let them miss what you just discovered. The stillness that followed was profound. It wasn't silence. It was the soft sound of three people finally breathing in unison. The intensity had peaked, the storm had passed, and now only the warm, heavy comfort of their presence remained. They didn't move away. They stayed close, their bodies a steady, reassuring weight, their hands resting where they had anchored me. Their control hadn't vanished. It had simply shifted into an immense calmness. This patience, this slow assurance, was the true display of their experience. They knew how to build a crescendo, and more importantly, how to hold the aftermath. My entire body felt exquisitely raw and completely at peace. The wild tension that had driven me to seek them out was gone, replaced by a deep, centering fulfillment. I didn't need to speak. I didn't need to ask for reassurance. They understood. Julian's fingers moved gently, untangling the strands of hair they had held just moments before. Elias's palm remained flat against my stomach, a steady, warm presence. The look they exchanged now was quiet, shared, and deeply satisfied. It wasn't arrogant. It was simply the acknowledgement of a complex need that had completely been met. I finally found my voice, a soft, low sound. I was more than curiosity. Elias looked directly into my eyes. His expression was soft, without judgment. We knew it was. I thought I wanted to be challenged, I explained, the words feeling true and vulnerable. I thought I wanted someone to simply see me. Julian smoothed my hair back from my forehead. You wanted someone to handle you, to take you where you truly needed to go, past the point where you could guide yourself. That was the absolute final truth. My drive for self-reliance had finally run into something strong enough to demand my surrender. And that surrender had been the deepest satisfaction of all. They hadn't rushed. They hadn't asked for permission at the crucial moments. They had simply taken over, confidently and smoothly. And in doing so, they had given me exactly what I was searching for. The physical intimacy faded into an emotional one, rooted in a perfect shared understanding of power and desire. The experience of being held, controlled, and consumed by their combined strength was the answer to every question I carried from Phoenix to Santa Fe. We sat there for a long time, the only movement the slow rise and fall of our chests. The silence was full, not empty. It was the moment where the hunter and the sought after meet on equal ground, sharing the immense satisfaction of a perfectly executed endeavor. When they finally moved, it was with the same slow, elegant synchronization as their arrival. Julian helped me to my feet, his touch now purely supportive, though the lingering heat remained. Elias retrieved my coat, his hands brushing my shoulders once more in a gesture that was both possessive and careful. I felt different, lighter, more grounded, and yet profoundly altered. I left that apartment not as a woman who had simply indulged a curiosity, but as one who had discovered a fundamental, complicated truth about her own needs. I walked away with a quiet, confident understanding of the precise power of experience. At the door, they both paused. Elias held the door open, his gaze warm and intense. Julian simply pressed a soft, warm hand to my back, a final anchoring touch. There were no promises, no requests, and no need for future plans. The experience had been complete in itself. I stepped back out into the cool New Mexico night, the air feeling fresh and clean. The city was still asleep. I looked back at them, standing framed in the doorway, two shadows now, but forever merged in my memory. They nodded, a final, powerful acknowledgement of the profound exchange we had just shared. I turned and walked away, not looking back again. I knew the weight of their experience would travel with me. So tell me, if you had found yourself sealed inside that quiet apartment, held between two such profound and commanding presences, would you have found the courage to simply let go? If you felt that truth deep in your gut, and if you believe everyone deserves to feel that rush of being utterly claimed, then you know what you must do. Share this story with the one person you trust the most. Don't let them miss what you just discovered.